So, for a second consecutive time in a row, England have lost the European Championship finals, this time to Spain. 2-1 it was on the day. And I'm recording this the morning after the night before. I couldn't quite bring myself to record it right after the game because I was I was struggling to kind of put into words how I was feeling, and I'm still struggling a little bit now, but I think I've kind of wrapped my head around it. And I'm not angry. I'm bitterly disappointed, of course I am. And I'm just sad, really. And I think it comes from the fact that I genuinely thought England were going to win this final because of the fact that we lost the last Euros final, especially because it was at home. And I thought the players would have used that disappointment and that anger and would have used it to fuel the performance this time around and would have got themselves over the line. It didn't work out. But I think the way the game planned out, I think really hammers home the disappointment because I think Spain were absolutely phenomenal. They did not let England get anywhere near them. Obviously, we got one goal through Cole Palmer, which was a fantastic strike from distance. But apart from that, did we really work Unai Simon? Not really. I mean, I just thought that Spain were the best team throughout the entire tournament. They had the group of death with the likes of Italy, Croatia, and Albania. They had to beat Germany and France to get themselves to the final, and they got themselves to the final, beating England as well, and they won every single game. Every player was phenomenal. The manager, La Fuente, was phenomenal as well. I think they just utterly deserved it, and England didn't. And I think that's why it's so hard to take because you don't feel like you deserve to be in the final as an England fan because the performances and the results have you only just kind of scraped the results, and you think to yourself, okay, fine, but it doesn't matter because we've got ourselves to the final anyway. And when you're in the final, it's just one game. Go out there, give it your best, and who knows what'll happen. But I think because England at no point in that game were really better or in the ascendancy, I think there was maybe a couple of minutes before we scored our equalising goal. But as soon as that goal went in again, Spain just dominated us again. So I was just thinking, yeah, do you know what? Fair enough, they deserve it. And England don't. And I think that's why it's so hard to take because I felt like in the last Euros, we were the better team, but we let Italy have it. Whereas this one, we weren't the better team. Spain definitely were, and we didn't deserve it. And it's hard to take, and it's a bitter pill to swallow. But we are in the situation we are now. And now the inquest begins, and there's so much to talk about. I mean, the squad as a whole, the performances, the style of play, formations, Gareth, Southgate, and the coaching staff, and we've got to break it down one by one. But if we talk a little bit about the game first, I was happy with the team news because I saw Luke Shaw was in for Kieran Trippier, and I thought, yes, thank God, because I was a little bit worried Southgate would have carried on to play Trippier because he has done in every game so far. Luke Shaw is still gradually coming back from his injury, but he started him, which was the right decision. And straight from the off, Luke Shaw was phenomenal against Yamal. He really asserted his dominance. He really let him know that he was there and he was going to be a force to be reckoned with. And Yamal really needed to step up his game to get past Luke Shaw. Ultimately, Yamal did in the second half, but I thought that first half, Luke Shaw was very, very good. And it finally gave a little bit more balance from the off rather than from in the second half or from 60 minutes when he came on as a substitute. From the off, it provided England with some balance. But I don't think it was enough because I think the whole team really struggled out of possession and in possession. In possession, we couldn't really pass through the lines. Spain's press was so dominant, so on the front foot that it really meant that England were constantly on the back foot. And how did England try and go about trying to break down the Spanish press? Well, they didn't. They just went long ball after long ball after long ball. And it was getting pretty frustrating the fact that Pickford every single time was kicking the ball long. And I was just thinking, you've got John Stones who plays for Man City, Mark Gay who's had a fantastic tournament, who's a ball-playing defender. You've got Carl Walker who plays for Man City, Luke Shaw plays for Man United. You've got Declan Rice who plays for Arsenal. You've got Kobe Mainoo who plays for Man United. Jude Bellingham for Real Madrid, Phil Foden for Man City, Bukayo Saka for Arsenal, Harry Kane for Bayern Munich. Play the ball through the team from defence to midfield to attack. But I was watching it just thinking, right, they must have been instructed. Pickford must be instructed to kick the ball long every single time. Because why not just give the ball to the players in the midfield and just say, right, you are world-class players, and, Declan Rice, £100 million player, Kobe Mainoo, one of the best wonder kids in the world, and just say, right, take the ball and play through the lines and be brave. But we saw in the game against France that they also tried to go long and it didn't work every single time. Laporte and Le Nomad kept on winning the headers. Harry Kane was woeful, if I'm being completely honest. He couldn't hold up the ball at all. I think he only won 2 out of his 6 aerial duels, and he didn't win a single of his ground duels. And every time it just felt like England were kicking the ball long and Spain were just recycling it again and again, and the pressure just kept on going again and again. And you thought to yourself, you need to relieve the pressure somehow. You need to put Spain on the back foot, because and as we've seen, that they can be gone at, but you just need to get yourself in those positions to be able to exploit the Spanish defence. But we never did that. We really, really let ourselves down, I thought. And I thought Kane had a bad game, a bad tournament, and there's been a lot of question marks about why that is. I can't quite put my finger on it, because your guess is as good as mine, but surely I don't think it's his legs, because he's just scored 40 goals in the season for Bayern Munich. I think he must be carrying some sort of knock, or he's just tired from the long season that he's had. I don't think he's lost his legs. I think at the age of 30, he's played a lot of football, yes, but he's captain of England. He loves playing for England. He's our talisman, our main centre forward, our main striker. I just think he hasn't lost his legs. I think it's something else. And I think personally it's probably an injury. We saw in the Champions League against Real Madrid when they're facing Bayern Munich that Thomas Tuchel took him off early and just saying he's got a bit of a back injury. And for me, I think that must be it. He must not be 100%. I don't think that he's lost his legs just yet. Not at the age of 30, not at the professional that we all know Harry Kane is. But does it come under the manager to then say, right, Harry, you're not at your best. You may have an injury. I'm not going to play you, or I'm going to drop you. But don't worry, because you're still in the squad. You can still come off for 20, 30 minutes towards the end of the game if we need to go. But we'll just need someone who's going to be 100% fit. And that you probably have to go down to Southgate and say, I can understand why Southgate doesn't drop Kane, because he is the main guy, the captain. And as soon as you drop him, everyone is on about, Kane, you can't drop Kane. What are you doing dropping Kane? If you want one chance to fall to anyone in squad, it's probably him. And yeah, that's all true. But if he's not 100%, or if he's not playing like he can at 100%, then yeah, I think you have to drop him. But you can't blame him for not doing so, because it's a massive decision to make. Obviously, he makes the change, and obviously brings on Watkins. And I think England are a much better side when Watkins did come on, because there was a bit more assertiveness in the press. There was a bit more running and a bit more legs, and it was more off the ball, which I thought really impressed me with Watkins. But when you're already 1-0 down, that's a constant question that keeps coming up with this England squad. Why can't we do it just from the off, from the first whistle, when it's 0-0? Why do we have to wait till we're behind to be proactive, to be on the front foot? And I don't know. Maybe that's something that's in the England DNA, and that's something that maybe requires a wider research rather than just analysing and breaking down this one tournament. Maybe it's something that's been going on for a while, because it definitely feels like it as an England fan. Previous tournaments, I feel like we've done exactly the same as well as soon as we've gone ahead. So, yeah, we are where we are, and another final that we've lost. And I'm still struggling to put it into words, because you look at the players and you think we have absolutely everything. Yes, there was a bit of imbalance from the left-hand side throughout the entire tournament, with Trippier there, with Foden out there, then ended up being Bellingham, and there's a bit of a system change. But you just think to yourself, we can do this. We have the players. So maybe are the players not as good as we think they are? Maybe there's a bit of that. I mean, if you think about players who are actually world-class, like people often say so-and-so is world-class, but let's define what world-class. For me, world-class is you are either top 3 or 5 in your position in world football. And I think to myself, which of the England team is world-class? And I think Harry Kane, definitely, but he hasn't been playing like he's been world-class. So you don't have a world-class player there in this tournament. Bellingham, I'd say, is world-class, but again, hasn't been playing like he is a world-class player, like he has been doing for Real Madrid throughout the course of the season. So that's another world-class player that you have, but hasn't been performing there. I'd say Saka is world-class, and at times he has shown it, but again, he's underperformed. And then all of a sudden, when you change the system and he's now playing right wing back, you're going to nullify his threat going forward. So what do you do there? I say Phil Foden is world class, but again, you playing him out of position, nullifying what he's good at, and then you finally maybe you do put him in areas where he is probably better, maybe in that 3 or that 2 behind Kane on the right hand side, but he's not performing again. And so maybe Rice, but I think he's not world class probably yet. I think he's probably going to get there. And anything about anyone in the defence, I probably wouldn't say so. And then you think to yourself, right, so all your world-class players that you do have, who are genuine world-class players, are now not performing to their level, then you're going to be in a bit of trouble. And then you're going to rely on moments. And that's exactly what we did throughout the entire tournament. I mean, Jude Bellingham against Slovakia, that overhead kick was a moment. I mean, the penalties against Switzerland, we should have beaten Switzerland. We should have done a better job of it. And we should have done it in normal time or extra time. We shouldn't have really got the penalties. But you get the penalties, you do it comfortably, everyone's all of a sudden more positive. The Netherlands game, was it a penalty on Kane? If it was the other way around, would all of us be fuming saying, do you know what, it wasn't a penalty, how on earth are we going out based on that one decision? But it goes in our favour, so we go, do you know what, it's alright, it's fine, we're in the final, who cares? But then we get to the final, we lose comprehensively, and then you think to yourself, right, all these moments that we've only just scraped by every single time, maybe that adds up, and we are where we are now, where we lost another final. And under Southgate, we got to the World Cup semi-final, lost that. We got to the we got to the World Cup semi-final, we lost that. We got to the Euros final at home, we lost that. We got to the World Cup quarter-final, we lost that to France. And we got to the Euros final again, and we lost it to Spain. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave the team? I think the team itself, from a general perspective, is in a good place. If you think about the next tournament being the World Cup, how many of our players are still going to be there? Probably a lot of them. I think Walker is 34, so maybe question marks about him. Trippier is 33, maybe question marks about him. If you think about the players who weren't included in the squad, who are always in and around it, Henderson, I think maybe Henderson has played his last game for England. Jordan Henderson, that is. So, and I'm fine with that personally. So I don't think too much of the side is in danger. I mean, question marks about Kane because of performances, but I think he'll be 32, turning 33 by the time the next World Cup comes along. I think that'll probably be his last tournament. But the rest of the squad, I mean, the average age is 26. I think the rest of the squad is fine. You do worry about them mentally now because, like the Declan Rice, that's 2 finals he lost now, and similar for some other players in the side. So I think the players are fine. You just hope mentally they're not going to be too badly scarred, losing another final. Hopefully, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, they're going to use this motivation to drive them forward to go on and win the next tournament. The manager, oh God, I'm going to come back. No, okay, let's do Southgate now. 4 tournaments as England manager, and what has he done well to start off with? He has got this England side to positions we never thought we'd get them, because in all honesty, when Sam Allardyce got the sack as England manager after 1 game and Southgate took over, expectations were rock bottom. There was no more rock to uncover. It was the very bottom, as far bottom as you can go. And he's managed to get us playing, sort of, and getting us results in tournaments. And that's all we've been asking for, because for so long we've been underperforming. And you could argue that now the England squad is underperforming, but at least we're getting ourselves into the positions, into the latter stages of the tournaments, which we haven't been doing previously on a consistent basis. So he's gotten rid of the fact that you need to play for a big club. You don't need to play for a big club anymore to play for England. You just need to be playing well and suit the England DNA, and I'm happy with that. Got expectations off the floor, and he's got us believing in England again. Criticisms. He what Southgate did really well right at the beginning was he didn't care who you were as a name. He was going to play the best team. He seems to have gone away from that a little bit, playing Ferdinand on the left wing. It seems like he has been shoehorning players into positions, Trent Alexander-Arnold into midfield, when he hasn't had the balls to say, do you know what? You're great, but for the sake of the team, I'm not going to play you. Now, whether that was Phil Foden, Trent Alexander-Arnold, whoever it might be, he hasn't had the balls to do it. And he's tried to accommodate every single player. And it hasn't worked out. And I think it's come to the detriment because, as you've seen with the Spain squad, the balance that they have. I mean, Morata up front with Yamal and Williams either side. Their midfield is so incredibly balanced. You lose Rodri, you bring in Zubimendi, and you think to yourself, okay, England have a chance. But no, they all have a role, they all have a function, and they all do that to an absolute T. And they are so incredibly balanced. And England, just nothing ever seemed to work. It always seemed not quite right. It seemed enough to get by, but ultimately we got exploited. And tactically, I think Southgate has fallen upon a formation that has meant that England have found themselves in the final. But we all know he wanted to start playing with a 4-2-3-1. It ended up being a 3-4-3 or a 3-4-2-1. It wasn't how it is meant to be. It changed mid-tournament and managed to work, and we had to run with it. Of course it did. If it's working, why fix what's broken? But fix what's not broken. But it wasn't the way he wanted to play. We stumbled across it, and yeah, it's not going to be how we're going to be playing as a formation going forward either. So that doesn't reflect well on Southgate. I think tactically, we could have been much better. We dominated games of football apart from the Spain game in the final, but we didn't do much with the ball. We were arguably a team who were better without the ball, counter-attacking and moments, not for throughout a whole 90 minutes, which was frustrating because we have the players and we have the capability to do so. And I think being brave in some situations, yes, Southgate has made some substitutions and they've come off. Obviously, the Watkins one against Netherlands, but I think we could all see that, you needed someone to stretch in behind, and bringing on Palmer. I think, we were all screaming for Palmer throughout the entire tournament. I don't think the substitutions, while they have worked and credit needs to be given to Southgate for them, I don't think they were ever groundbreaking and something that we as people at home weren't calling for ourselves. I think that's the issue. I think could he have dropped Foden? Could he have dropped Kane? Why didn't he try Trent Alexander-Arnold for more games in the qualifiers, in friendlies, before the actual tournament itself, to give him a good run in that position, to let him learn that position before throwing him in the deep end and then dropping him after 2 games in the World Cup, in the Euro, sorry. It just didn't make sense. It felt like you were just throwing him in there because you were looking for a solution. And what was the plan? That we were hoping for Calvin Phillips to be fit and have a good 6 months at West Ham. And some of the things he said in interviews about Calvin Phillips, England don't have a player like him, we miss him. And I just thought, what are you doing? Stop saying that. Stop talking about players who aren't there, because if you want Phillips that badly, just pick him. Pick him in the squad and play him. And it'll be your sword to die on. But he didn't, so don't talk about him when he's not there. It doesn't reflect well on the players that you have picked, which is so frustrating because it did seem like we were turning a bit of a corner with Southgate because of the fact that he picked a squad that was young and exciting and more attacking, and one we were calling for. He dropped players like Jordan Henderson, Marcus Rashford, Calvin Phillips, and then he made some big, bold decisions by not taking players like Branthwaite, Maddison, Grealish. Grealish was the big one for me, because you then take Anthony Gordon, he's the only recognised natural left winger, and you think to yourself, fine, okay, he's going to give him the reins, he's going to let him go. But he doesn't. He plays Phil Foden, the Premier League Player of the Season, out on the left wing in the position where he's not comfortable in, which we clearly can see that he's not his best position. And when you have a left winger, a natural left winger, who scored 20 plus goals in all competitions for Newcastle this season, scored against every single one of the big 6 clubs, and a player who appears to have the temperament to take it on and take on their weight of responsibility in big games, in big moments, and you don't play him at all. It just feels disappointing. And I like Gareth Southgate. I do. and you can come at me for that. But I think, where do we go now as fans? Are we going to learn anything about this England side or from Gareth Southgate that we don't already know about them in the next 2 years in the lead up to the World Cup? And I think the answer is no. I don't think another 2 years of this is going to be healthy. I didn't want him to go after the World Cup because I knew the Euros were coming up, and I thought, because of circumstances and COVID, there's only 18 months to the Euros. Keep Southgate and let's see what he can do. He's got us to the final. But I think the way we've got there and the way we've lost the final, I think it leaves a lot to be desired. And ultimately, the FA come out and said it is going to be his decision. They want him to stay for another 2 years. Prior to the final, I would have said, yeah, that's fine. I don't mind it. I don't love it, but I don't mind it if he were to stay. But I just think there's nowhere left for us fans to go now for the next 2 years. It's going to be more of the same. And I think it's going to be more of this England side continuing to maybe be nearly men. And I don't believe that going to the World Cup that we will win it. And I think we probably will do well. We probably will get far. But I don't have the belief that we will win it under Gareth Southgate anymore. And so I think it is best, and I think it's best for everyone, all parties, if he just decides to leave. And I think that's where I'm at the moment, because I don't think he needs personally the scrutiny, and I think some of the abuse has gone too far. I think when it gets personal, it doesn't need to get personal. It just doesn't. I mean, you can say all you need to say as him, as a professional, as a manager, and just say you don't think he's good enough. And I think if he were to hear the criticism say we don't think he's good enough, I think he'll take that to heart. And I think that's enough. And I do wish that, he's done well with England. He hasn't got us over that final hurdle, which I think we all expected him to do so, considering the quality of players and the positions we found ourselves with the run. Some of the runs in the knockout stages that we found ourselves, we've been very fortunate, and we haven't been able to capitalise. So I think it is time to move on from Southgate. I wish, obviously, him the very best. I think he's done a fantastic job, and I think it's now time for someone else, because another 2 years of England with Southgate, I don't think the fans will really tolerate it. And I just think it's time now where we've got ourselves to a situation where we're ready for, the team's ready, and I don't think Southgate is the man anymore. But if he were to stay, I wouldn't hate it, but I just don't think it's just not right. The timing is off now. I think timing is so important in football, and I think the time is now, and it's right for Southgate to leave. And I hope that he takes the decision himself, because I think it could get pretty ugly if he decides to stay. Who do I want next then? If he were to leave, that's tough. That's really, really tough. And I'm glad I'm not the one making the decision. But look about who's available. Obviously, Graham Potter. Eddie Howe, would he leave Newcastle? Who knows? It's England. Maybe. Got the likes of Lee Carsley, who's the under-21 manager. Yeah, maybe, but no one really exciting out there. Got the likes of Jurgen Klopp. He's rejected the US men's national team. I don't think he's going to take the England job. Give it a year. Give it to Pep Guardiola. I don't think he would take it either. And it's a tough one. I mean, I'll probably give it to Eddie Howe. If he were to leave Newcastle, I'd give it to him. Second to him, I'll probably give it to Graham Potter. But either way, it's no one exciting. I'm not too fussed about if the new manager is English or not, because, I mean, well, look at me. I'm a guy who's been born of 2 Indian parents, who didn't grow up in, who wasn't born in the country, but grew up in the country from a young age. And for me, it's very much just, whoever is the best man for the job. And if they're English or not, that doesn't matter. If it's in English, it's a plus, but for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be. I probably would give it to Eddie Howe if you were happy to take the job and leave Newcastle. But again, so many questions going forward. I mean, the inquest has only just begun. I mean, this is day one of losing the final, and so much is going to come out before the Premier League season starts. If Southgate is to leave, he needs to do it soon, so the FA can appoint someone. That person then can analyse what the job needs and what he wants to do with his England team, what he's going to pick before the Nation League the Nation League matches in September. And we need to really gear ourselves up, because we have a squad that can win the World Cup in 2 years. But will we? And yeah, just disappointment, lots of sadness, and getting to the point now where I wonder, will we ever do it? It's been a long wait since 1966. I haven't had as long a wait as I'm sure some people watching this will have had, but yeah, another final, another missed opportunity. But hopefully, fingers crossed, this isn't England forever. Hopefully we use this and learn from this, and yeah, we can go into the next few England matches, be a bit more positive, and hopefully in 2 years' time when the World Cup comes around, then we'll be able to go again, and hopefully that time we will be able to cross the finish line.